Yo, what's up, people? It's your boy. I'm Christy Don One, and I am back with another video. Now, I saw Funkmaster Flex live stream. I believe he was on Facebook or Instagram. I really don't know. It was 40 minutes long, and he was, trying to change the energy and trying to change the tune. Basically, he was damage controlling throughout the whole entire live stream. He sort of discredited T.I. on the standpoint of when all of this was going down. T.I. was a very young man. He was like 10 years old, which the turning point of the hip-hop community losing not only Notorious B.I.G. as well as Tupac. God rest their souls. Let me stay on this point. When those two individuals died in the hip-hop community, they left us with a huge void, okay? And it took a long period of time for hip-hop to get back on track, okay? So, God rest their souls, rest in peace, but it took the hip-hop community a long period of time to get back on track because we lost two talented brothers, all right? That was pushing the bar, okay? So, Funkmaster Flex basically says that when all of this was transpiring, T.I. was 10, and T.I. don't know any better because, he was a kid, and he was living in that era, okay? Funkmaster Flex, during that whole live stream, was pretty much weaving in certain time frames of these two guys to prove his point, okay? And I don't have no issue with Funkmaster Flex, but when Funkmaster Flex says they're not telling the whole truth, we're making Tupac into something that he's not, I disagree with him. And like I said in my other video, it's amazing how 20 years after the fact, you have this whole negativity campaign, and I don't believe in coincidence, okay? I don't believe in coinkydinks, okay? All Eyes on Me is going to be premiering in this summer, okay? There's a reason why people are speaking out negatively towards Pac, okay? Now, I say all that to say this, okay? When that Funkmaster Flex is talking about that moment in time when Tupac got shot in that studio. He accidentally shot himself because he was getting robbed, okay? So he tried to pull out his weapon, he shot himself, and they shot him, okay? As well as pistol whip him, okay? Now, Funkmaster Flex believes that if Tupac wouldn't be carrying a weapon, the reason why Tupac was carrying a weapon that particular time was because Tupac knew that he did a lot of things in the street and he wanted to protect himself, okay? Now, in that particular time frame, Funkmaster Flex, that was a common trait throughout the hip-hop industry. A lot of rappers were toting. They wasn't toting because they started a lot of stuff that they didn't need to be starting, okay? It was just the law of the land, all right? Everybody was toting. Notorious B.I.G. and his crew, they was toting. Pac and some of his friends, they was toting. And it just wasn't those two individuals. It was everybody in that hip-hop community. Everybody was toting steel back then, all right? Not because of what they transpired through the streets or what they transpired through the hip-hop industry in a negative way. It was just the way it is that particular time frame, okay? So, Pac got shot in the studio, and I already told this tale on my last video. Pac, like anybody who gets shot in that situation, the first thing they do is writing a list of names of people that they may have issues with, or just names in general, because that's what the paranoia seeps in after you just got shot, okay? It happens to every man or woman who gets shot, And Pac wasn't different from anyone else, okay? So Pac believed, Funkmaster Flex, that Notorious B.I.G., Sean Puffy Combs either put the hit on him or they knew, okay? They knew who set him up, okay? In the beginning of that time frame, all right? So later on, it was found out that the guys who robbed Tupac, not only Tupac knew them, but Sean Puffy Combs and Notorious B.I.G. also knew these guys, okay? Now, later on, Pac changed his opinion about that. Instead of saying, well, Sean and Biggie, they didn't put a hit out on me, but they knew it was going down and they could have informed me or told me, okay? Because, once again, Pac was young. A lot of people don't realize Pac died young. He was really young when he got shot in that particular studio. Now, I'm not saying what Pac said at that particular time frame was the right thing to do. I'm not even saying that. But what I'm just telling you guys the tale. All right? So, when Pac got incarcerated for that sexual assault, all right, when he got incarcerated, his mindset and his opinion changed about that viewpoint about Biggie and Puffy putting a hit on him. He still believed, even when he was locked up, that those brothers knew about it. Even though Sean denied it, Biggie denied it, okay? But what people and Funkmaster Flex is not telling, they're always saying they want to tell the whole tale, is at that particular time, Pac was very stubborn-minded, all right? If Pac believed something, it took a long time to convince Pac otherwise, okay? Because he was a strong-minded individual, all right? So when Pac was locked up and incarcerated, he changed his tune and changed his opinion about, well, they didn't set him up, but they knew about it. He was still on that, okay? But it wasn't a lie to Tupac. He really believed that Biggie and Puffy knew, all right? Now, a lot of you guys have to realize in that era, social media like it is now, it wasn't like that then, okay? Information wasn't processed as fast as you received it like you got now, like it was then, okay? So when Pac got out of jail and he signed to death row, all right, all of these radio interviews, these TV interviews, these magazine interviews, the only thing people wanted to talk about at that particular time was some old stuff that happened when Tupac got shot in that studio, all right? Everybody, that was the pulse of the nation at that particular time, all right? And even Pac said it wasn't about West versus East. Even Biggie mentioned it. It wasn't about the coast. It's about those two individuals having a disagreement on what transpired in that studio. All right? So, you know, Pac is doing his thing with Death Row, and Biggie's doing his thing with Bad Boy. All right? These guys were pretty much separated. All right? Biggie pretty much was in the West Coast region, and Pac was with the West. A lot of people also don't realize Pac was really born and raised in the East. All right? He has East Coast roots. All right? If you listen to his first two albums, they were East Coast related because that's what he was seeing and watching when he was in the East Coast. A lot of people assume that Tupac was this West Coast guy. Tupac wasn't West Coast, all right? Tupac, lived in the Bay Area, but his final time on this planet, he spent maybe a year or two in California. He didn't spend a lot of time in California, all right? But when a lot of people talk about Pac, the first two albums that comes out of their mouth when you're talking about young folks is Machiavelli, and All Eyes on Me. That's only 2 albums Young Bucks talk about. They don't talk about the other albums that transpired before those albums. Okay? So, when Pac died in Vegas, that was sort of like a missed opportunity, because what Funkmaster Flex is not telling and preaching to the masses was, at that particular time, Pac was off of that stuff. Pac wasn't talking about Biggie put a hit on me. Yeah, on the diss record, that was before he got shot. All right, not after, before. Okay, but Pac wasn't even feeling that at that particular time. That wasn't Pac's vibe and Pac's mood. Pac was all about making music, and he knew he was in a messed up situation contract wise with Death Row. He knew it was going to be a struggle for him to be released off of Death Row. Okay, and that's another time and another story. Okay. So when Pac died at Vegas, Pac didn't have the opportunity. And once again, you have to realize Pac was young, Pac was strong-minded, and Pac was also stubborn to a fault. All right? Pac didn't, it took a while for Pac to do the right thing and say the right thing. If Pac was still living today, a lot of these things that are going on, Pac would have already squashed this years ago. Pac never had the opportunity, all right? So Pac dies. Biggie, that was his friend, man. Even to the end. Biggie said on countless radio interviews, countless TV interviews, even magazine interviews, that he missed his big homie. They were still friends even when all that stuff was going down. Biggie, he was still Pac's friend. He just felt like at that particular time, in that moment in time, they just had issues and gripes. And why did he consider him a friend? Because Pac and Biggie was communicating. All right, there wasn't a lot of communication going on with the two individuals because they was trying to push their brand and push their thing. And you also have to realize that would have been bad for business for Bad Boy as well as Death Row. More so Death Row, all right? When you got two CEOs that they was trying to push this movement because they saw the money, this was like a cash cow, man. This West Coast versus East Coast, all right? Even though Pac and Biggie on countless interviews was squashing that, they was also squashing the issues that they had with one another. It took a while, but eventually they was trying to get to that point. But they never had the opportunity because Pac got shot in Vegas. And a year later, Biggie got shot in California. Now, Funkmaster Flex, this is what you're not telling, all right? This is not what you're not telling this, all right? And I was a Biggie fan and a Tupac fan. I was more of a hip hop fan in general. But this is not, okay, you're not telling the whole truth, all right? When when Pac died, a lot of people were telling Biggie, you need to lay low, brother, all right? There's a lot of people out there that's thinking that you had something to do with Pac dying in Vegas. Not Pac getting shot in the studio, Pac dying in Vegas, okay? A lot of people who were, I wouldn't say working towards Death Row, but a lot of friends at that record company was talking to people in the media. And even the police thought that there was an angle between Bad Boy and Death Row. All right. Flex, you seem to forget that when they was trying to figure out who shot Pac, a lot of these scenarios came out of the woodwork. People were thinking Biggie did it, and they excused that excuse. People People were thinking Puff had something to do with it. They excused that. They even went as far as Suge had something to do with it. Now, wait a minute. You mean to tell me Suge was going to put a hit on Pac and risk his life while he was in the car? All right. And a lot of people was believing this garbage. Okay. So people were telling Biggie to just lay low, brother. Let this die down, man, because people are out there thinking that you have something or you had some influence behind Tupac getting shot. A lot of people were telling Biggie, yo, just lay low, man. But Biggie wanted to just keep doing what he was doing, and he was promoting his album, Life After Death. He was promoting that album. He went to California to do a promotional tour there, as well as recording a video calling everybody know the video. I'm going back to Cali. He was trying to promote that, and the reason why he was doing that, because he wanted the East Coast and the West Coast to get back on point, to get back together again. He wanted love for both coasts, because in Biggie's mind, he viewed it as it wasn't necessarily about trying to separate the two coasts. It was about putting them together to make it one big, fun experience, a unique thing. Okay, Pac was doing that too. All right. But Biggie was really trying to push this movement. And that's why that album was so important to Biggie. All right. So, and we all know after that, Biggie got shot at a party, and we lost not only Pac, but then we also lost Biggie as well. And that left a huge hole, a huge void in the hip hop community. It was hard for the hip hop community to get back on rail again. All right. It was, the artists that were trying to continue to push the movement. And at that particular time, a lot of people don't want to say this, or gangster rap, hardcore rap took a huge dent, a huge hit when those two brothers died. Yes. Okay. I feel you, Fun Master Flex. You lost a friend. Okay. I didn't know Biggie or Pac like that. I couldn't really necessarily call them friends. Okay. But the one thing I can say is, yes, you do have points. I don't think Pac should have screamed that Biggie had something to do with him getting shot in that studio. All right. I kind of co-sign with you. I kind of agree with you on that. But you have to understand his point of view too. There are two sides to a truth, man. Pac was really believing that they had something to do with it. Now, later on, during the course of time, he changed his opinion about it. All right. And unfortunately, both of these brothers died young. They didn't get an opportunity to not only bury the hatchet, but squash it indefinitely. But they was making progress into doing that. All right. So to sit up there and say Pac lied, I think that's a huge stretch. All right. A huge stretch. Do I feel like, but that studio, what went down and what transpired in that studio, and what Pac said after that altercation in that studio, it really doesn't tie to why these two brothers are no longer here. Okay? Pac died for a misunderstanding. All right? That's why Pac died. Okay? Pac death had nothing to do with Biggie, had nothing to do with Bad Boy, had nothing to do with the East Coast, had nothing to do with none of that. Okay? Pac was in the wrong place at the wrong time. Have you ever heard of that old saying? You was at the wrong place at the wrong time. That's why Pac is no longer here. When Biggie passed, he too was at the wrong place at the wrong time. If both of them brothers, if Pac would have never went to that Mike Tyson fight, okay, if he would have skipped that fight, Pac would still be here. Okay? And if Pac would have still been here, Biggie would definitely be here. Okay? That's just the way it was. A lot of people were assuming that the police was involved, that they wanted to assassinate these two because these two had a platform and a voice that a lot of African Americans was embracing this movement, this, that, and the third. These two guys died for petty reasons, all right? And I just don't see how bringing this up 20 years later, what's the goal, all right? What's really the goal? Because at the end of the day, none of us really knew what happened, okay? We all pretty much knew what went down in the studio, but none of us know truly know 100% why Pac died that day. Why Biggie died that day. No one fully knows. Everyone has their doubts. Everyone has an opinion. There is some breadcrumbs of the truth sprinkled here and there, but nobody really knows. But at the end of the day, who cares? We lost two brothers that left a huge void in the hip-hop community. These two brothers were honored by a movie, and one of them was honored in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I don't know if Funkmaster Flex is ticked off about that Pac is in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and he's going to be in a movie that might be just as successful as the NWA flick. Okay? But no one, I don't know his agenda, but I feel like it is an agenda. Okay? But Funkmaster Flex, we all lost something that day in the hip hop community, and these two great rappers. Okay? But guys, tell me what you think. Rate, comment, subscribe. It's your boy. I'm Chris the Don One, and I am out.